Hello, readers. This is a reading from Chapter 1 of Skimming Over the Lake, book number 5 in the Parks Pet Mysteries series. Margie was settled in front of the TV with her teenage daughter, Christina, as the Calgary Stampede Parade began. The Stampede had been cancelled the previous year due to COVID, so everyone was eager to see its return. The much shorter parade could only be watched on TV and not attended in person. At least it was still going ahead. It had been a long time since Margie had seen the rodeo/fair, dubbed the greatest outdoor show on earth, while visiting cousins in Calgary over the summer. "Do you think we can go to the Stampede?" Kristen asked. "There'll be lots of stuff to see, including the Bow River Camp." "The Bow River Camp?" "What used to be the Indian village, teepees and dances and other indigenous culture. You want me to go to stuff like that, don't you? To be educated about my background?" Margie pushed her own long black hair back over her ears, smiling at Christina. "You really don't need to pull the culture card to go to the Stampede." Christina had a sip of her coffee. "I didn't think it could hurt." Margie chuckled at this. "Well, we'll see. I don't really have anything against it, other than crowds and noise and possible contaminants, and people drinking and getting out of control, the heat and the dust, or the rainstorms." Christina shook her head. "Maybe we could take Mosham down if they have a seniors' day. He remembers what it used to be like. He can tell us how it compares." "I don't know that I want to be taking an old man down there." Margie thought about the hazards that she'd already mentioned. Her grandfather's immune system wasn't as strong as a young man's. He could be a target for drunks, someone small and frail who couldn't fight back. He would look strange to them in his brightly colored clothes and buckskins, and the heat was more likely to affect a senior. "Maybe we could take him to one of the pancake breakfasts around here, or find something that is closer to home. Taking him in his wheelchair on the bus and train." "Why can't we drive?" "Because there isn't much parking and it is expensive. The Stampede Gate tickets are expensive enough without having to spend $100 on parking, or on hiring a taxi or Uber." "Couldn't you park for free with your police tag?" She had a point, but Margie would only use her police tag if she were actually on the job. She couldn't use it just to get more affordable or convenient parking. She was scrupulously careful in not taking advantage of anything because she was a police detective, or playing the race or gender cards for that matter. She was determined to only get what she had worked hard to earn. "No, I can't," she told Christina flatly. "That's not the way it works." Christina huffed and rolled her eyes. Stella, lying at her feet, opened one eye to examine her to see why she was making such a noise, then decided it was not anything to be concerned about and closed it again. She made a little groan and rolled over so she was right on top of Christina's foot. Christina wriggled her toes. "Hey, it's too hot to have a fur rug on my feet. Get off." Stella didn't, and Christina didn't immediately pull her feet out, but instead reached down to scratch Stella's ears and then her belly. Stella's tail thumped loudly on the floor. "There are the Calgary Police!" Christina exclaimed, as a series of police cars and motorcycles led the parade. "Do they have a float, too, or is that it?" "I think the mounted unit is in it later." "It's a good thing you're a homicide detective, so you don't have to be downtown blocking off streets and keeping drunks away from the parade." "You're right." Margie was very happy to be right where she was, watching the parade from the comfort of her own home. The convenience more than made up for any pang of regret that they could not see it in person. They were watching the native princess who had been appointed parade marshal when Margie's phone rang. She looked down at it, hoping that it would not be work. She'd even take a telemarketer, which was easy because she didn't have to answer the phone for a telemarketer. She'd even take a call from Christina's school, saying that she hadn't handed in some final assignment, or they'd lost her final exams. It was work. The name and picture on the display were Detective Seaver's. She didn't know Seaver well. He was pretty quiet, good with technical stuff. If she had a computer problem or was trying to figure out how to process a large amount of data, he was the one she would go to. They hadn't worked very closely on previous files. He seemed to prefer staying in the office over getting out and doing fieldwork, more comfortable with a computer than real people. Maybe it was just a call to let her know that she had a new login or hadn't responded to an email he'd sent previously. Margie looked at Christina, who was watching her closely. "That had better not be work," Christina warned. Margie raised her brows in an expression of surrender and swiped the screen to answer the call. "Detective Patenaude." "It's Seaver. I'm heading in your direction. Looks like we might have another case for Park's Pat. Margay thought immediately of Valley View Park, her last case, just barely put to bed. It couldn't be another death in Valley View. What's going on? Where? The other possibility that presented itself was Ralph Klein Provincial Park. It had been almost a year since that one, but Seaver would still consider it to be in her direction. It was only a 15-minute drive away. Margie hoped it wasn't Ralph Klein. She did not like the murky black water in the reservoir beside the education center. The canals and other waterways caused her anxiety enough. That black pool was so ominous and foreboding. Elliston Park. You know it? Seaver asked. No, I don't. I've heard of it. I think it's east down 17th Avenue. That's right. Surprised you haven't taken your dog there. It's a nice area. Margie had plenty of multi-use pathways close to the house and hadn't ventured much farther than Valley View Park, or north to the winding pathways around Maxwell Center. It's on my list. Well, today you get to see it in person. Margie looked over at Christina, sighing. Do you really need me there? I'd appreciate it. I know everyone is supposed to be off today, but homicides don't wait for anyone. You're the closest one. It would disrupt your schedule the least. I'm watching the parade with my daughter. She's a teenager, isn't she? She can look after herself until you get back. It'll be an hour, maybe two. You can DVR it and watch it with her later. Fast forward through the boring bits and watch the good stuff over again. Much more entertaining. How long until you're there? I'm about 10 minutes out, probably going past your house about now. I'll meet you in the east parking lot. You know how to get there? No, Margie's stomach tightened. There's more than one parking lot? Sure. And probably only the main one would show up on GPS. By the way Seaver said she should meet him in the east parking lot, she assumed it was not the main entrance. Maybe I should use the main parking lot. You can secure things in the east, and I can see if there's anything of note going on in the west access. Seaver was silent for a minute. I don't think there's going to be anything on that side. The Vic's car will be in the east lot. That's where we'll be collecting evidence. We won't know if there's anything of note in the west end unless we check. I may as well do that. Do you think you can find your way from the west end to where the body is? Margie had an uncomfortable feeling that he knew or guessed more about her lack of direction, her lack of sense of direction, than she had ever told anyone. Why else would he have asked that? How big is this park? Are there lots of pathways? Not really. They're just in a loop around the lake, sort of an outer loop and an inner loop. Okay. And which should I be on? He considered for a few seconds. Fine. Shortest to go around the north side of the lake. If you're facing the lake from the west parking lot, that's the left. Doesn't matter which path you take. The outer loop will be longer, obviously. I can do that. Margie grabbed a pen and a flyer from the coffee table and scribbled down his instructions. I'll be on my way in 5 minutes. He grunted and hung up the phone. Christina looked at Margie, one eyebrow raised. First no Canada Day, and now no parade day? I'm sorry, honey. Like Detective Seaver says, you can DVR it and we can watch it together later. I don't want to watch it later. I want to watch it now, with you, not a taped version later. We can just watch the news or YouTube for that. I'll be back as soon as I can. Margie knew there was no point in arguing. It wouldn't get them any closer to overcoming the disappointment that, once again, Margie was being taken away from Christina on a day that was supposed to be set apart for the two of them. Christina wasn't the only one who was upset about her being called in. I can't control when the bodies are found. Margie divided her hair into sections behind her head and began to braid it. She would have to change out of her casual shorts and t-shirt and into something more appropriate for a homicide detective, and then jump in the car and get to the park as quickly as she could. She didn't want to keep Seaver waiting for too long, and it was going to take some time to walk to his location. She hadn't even asked him how far a walk it would be. All right, so that is chapter 1 of Skimming Over the Lake, book number 5 in the Parks Pat Mystery Series. Hope that you'll read it soon.